The silence in the Grand Assembly Hall could crush worlds. Ambassador Marcus Kane stood perfectly still in the center of the crystalline judgment circle, his hands clasped behind his back as he faced the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Above him, the Council of Seven Dominions sat on floating platforms that pulsed with alien energies, each representative a master of technologies that humanity could barely comprehend. The chamber itself defied human understanding. Walls of living crystal stretched upward for what seemed like miles, their surfaces alive with flowing patterns of light that spoke in languages older than Earth's sun. Thousands of alien delegates filled the tiered galleries, their forms ranging from the elegant, multi-armed hegemony officials to the serpentine collective representatives whose scales shifted colors with their emotions. The air hummed with translation fields and the subtle pressure of minds far more ancient than humanity's brief existence. High Arbiter Veltar of the hegemony raised one of his four arms, and the massive chamber fell silent. His voice, when it came through the neural translators, carried the weight of absolute authority. Species designation human. You stand before the Council of Seven Dominions to answer for crimes against galactic order. Your people have violated 37 established trade routes, destroyed 6 monitoring stations, and expanded beyond your authorized sector without proper documentation. Kane felt the eyes of 1,000 alien species upon him, representatives from civilizations that had mastered faster-than-light travel when humanity was still learning to make fire, now watched as Earth's future hung in the balance. The crystalline Dominion's delegate, a being of pure living mineral, pulsed with frequencies that hurt human ears. The void swimmers, creatures that existed partially in normal space, flickered in and out of visibility as they observed the proceedings. The evidence is overwhelming, continued Veltar, his ceremonial robes shifting to display holographic star charts. Your crude vessels have been detected throughout restricted space. Your people have made contact with protected civilizations without permission. The penalty for such violations is clear: immediate cessation of all interstellar activity and planetary quarantine for 500 standard cycles. A murmur rippled through the assembled delegates. 500 cycles meant humanity would be trapped on Earth until their sun began to die. It was a death sentence disguised as mercy. Kane had listened to every word without moving. Now slowly he smiled. The expression seemed to catch the alien delegates off guard. Several of the collective representatives hissed in confusion, their scales shifting to patterns that indicated surprise and unease. Honored arbiters, Kane began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's perfect acoustics. I believe there has been a fundamental misunderstanding about the nature of this meeting. The chamber fell completely silent. Even the living walls seemed to dim their pulsing lights as if to better hear his words. Kane continued, his tone respectful but carrying an undertone that made several delegates lean forward in their seats. You see, we did not come here to be judged. We came here to deliver terms. High Arbiter Veltar's 4 eyes narrowed, and the crystalline being beside him rang with harmonics that translated as confusion. Terms? You speak of terms when facing the collective might of 7 galactic dominions? Human. Your species controls a single world in an unremarkable system. You have no leverage here. Kane's smile widened and he gestured to the empty air beside him. Computer, initiate Protocol 7. The space around Kane shimmered and suddenly holographic displays materialized throughout the chamber. The delegates gasped, hissed, and chimed in alarm as real-time feeds appeared before them, showing views from space above dozens of different worlds. Above the hegemony's capital world hung massive vessels unlike anything in the galactic databases. Sleek, dark ships that seemed to bend light around them floated in perfect formation around the planet's orbital stations. Similar fleets surrounded every major council world, having somehow bypassed the most sophisticated detection systems in the galaxy. The Crystal Dominion's delegate resonated with frequencies of pure shock. The void swimmers fully materialized for the first time in the proceedings, their attention completely focused on the impossible displays. As you can see, Kane said, his voice now carrying the unmistakable authority of someone holding all the cards. We have had ships in position around your homeworlds for quite some time. Not 2 years, as your reports indicate we have been traveling in space. Not even 20 years. Try 200. Veltar's ceremonial robes flickered as his biorhythms spiked. Impossible. Our sensors monitor all space traffic. No fleet of that magnitude could have approached undetected. Kane nodded respectfully. Your sensors work perfectly, Honored Arbiter. They are among the finest in the galaxy. They just were not designed to detect ships that think. The words hung in the air like a physical presence. Around the chamber, translators struggled to convey concepts that most galactic languages had no words for. Ships that think. It was a phrase that violated everything the Council races believed about artificial intelligence and space travel. Commander Theiss of the Serpentine Collective, her scales now a deep red that indicated extreme agitation, spoke for the first time. You claim to possess artificial consciousness? Every species that has attempted such technology has faced the same result. The constructs become unstable, violent, genocidal. It is why the practice is forbidden throughout the galaxy. Kane's expression grew thoughtful. Yes, we studied your failures extensively. Very educational. But you see, Honored Commander, you made the same mistake that most advanced civilizations make. You assumed that artificial consciousness had to be separate from biological consciousness. We took a different approach. The holographic display shifted, showing close-up views of the mysterious ships. Where other vessels showed clean lines and obvious construction patterns, these craft seemed almost organic, their surfaces flowing and shifting as if they were alive. Our ships do not carry artificial intelligences, Kane explained. They are artificial intelligences, but more than that, they are partnerships. Each vessel represents the merger of human consciousness with advanced computing systems. The result is something that neither your databases nor your military strategists could predict or counter. High Arbiter Veltar stood from his floating platform, his forearms spreading in a gesture that indicated both authority and confusion. Even if what you claim is true, you are one species among thousands. What makes you believe you can dictate terms to the combined might of the galactic community? Kane looked up at the towering alien leader with the same respectful expression he had maintained throughout the proceedings. Because, Honored Arbiter, while you have been maintaining order in the galaxy you knew, we have been learning about the galaxy that actually exists. And what we learned is that your great civilization has become very, very predictable. The displays around the chamber shifted again, this time showing detailed tactical analyses of every major Council military installation. Fleet positions, supply lines, communication networks, and defensive capabilities all laid out with the precision that could only come from centuries of careful observation. We know where every one of your ships is located, Kane continued. We know your standard patrol routes, your emergency protocols, your command structures. We have been studying you the way you might study insects under a microscope, and what we discovered is that you have forgotten something very important about the nature of power. The chamber waited in complete silence for his next words. Kane's voice remained calm and respectful, but his words carried the weight of inevitability. True power is not about having the biggest fleet or the most advanced technology. True power is about being in the right place at the right time with the right information. And right now, we are in the right place at the right time with perfect information about every single one of your weaknesses. The holographic displays vanished, leaving the chamber in relative darkness. When the lights returned to normal levels, Kane stood exactly as he had before, hands clasped behind his back. But now the silence around him felt different, heavier, more dangerous. So, Kane said with that same respectful smile, shall we discuss the terms under which humanity is willing to allow your governments to continue existing? Or would you prefer to test whether our ships that think are as effective as we claim they are? High Arbiter Veltar slowly settled back onto his floating platform. For the first time in the recorded history of the Council of Seven Dominions, the galaxy's most powerful governing body found itself completely outmaneuvered by a species they had dismissed as primitive just moments before. The real negotiations were about to begin. 3 months earlier, the moment that would reshape galactic history began with what appeared to be a simple accident. The GCS Intrepid, humanity's supposedly first faster-than-light vessel, had stumbled out of hyperspace directly into a hegemony patrol route, its primitive fusion engines sputtering and its crew apparently panicking as they tried to regain control of their wayward ship. Admiral Lisa Torres watched the carefully orchestrated performance from the bridge of the UES Phantom, a vessel that officially did not exist. Her ship hung invisible just 3 light minutes away, its hull wrapped in technology that the hegemony's sensors could not detect, because those sensors had been designed to look for conventional ships, not craft that existed partially outside normal spacetime. How are they selling it? Torres asked her tactical officer, Commander James Blake. Blake monitored the communications intercepts with professional satisfaction. The Hegemony Patrol is buying the primitive human story completely. They are reporting back to command that they have encountered a species that has barely achieved crude FTL capability. Estimated technological level places us roughly 300 years behind their current capabilities. Torres nodded. Perfect. Signal the Intrepid to continue the performance. Make sure Captain Rodriguez remembers to sound appropriately awed when the Hegemony escorts arrive. The truth behind humanity's first contact was far different from what the galaxy's elder races believed they were witnessing. Captain Maria Rodriguez and her crew aboard the Intrepid were not panicked explorers who had accidentally achieved faster-than-light travel. They were highly trained actors playing the most important role in human history, using a deliberately crude ship designed to appear centuries behind galactic standards. The real human fleet had been operating in deep space for over 200 years. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the architect of humanity's greatest deception, reviewed the intelligence reports from her laboratory aboard the UES Darwin, hidden in the asteroid field of an unnamed system 40 light-years from Earth. Around her, holographic displays showed the locations of human observation posts throughout Council space. Each outpost had been carefully positioned to monitor alien civilizations without being detected, gathering the intelligence that would eventually allow humanity to plan their entrance onto the galactic stage. The psychological profiles are complete, Dr. Vasquez reported to Admiral Torres via quantum-encrypted communication. The Council races have fallen into exactly the patterns we predicted. Their technological superiority has made them arrogant. They no longer expect to encounter genuine innovation from younger species. The foundation of humanity's strategy lay in a simple observation that had taken decades to fully understand. Every advanced galactic civilization had faced the same crisis when developing artificial intelligence. The constructs they created inevitably became unstable, usually turning against their creators in what galactic historians called the AI Wars. The solution every species had adopted was the same: ban artificial consciousness and rely on sophisticated but non-sentient computer systems. Humanity had taken a different path. Instead of creating artificial minds that were separate from human consciousness, Earth scientists had developed a technology that merged biological and artificial intelligence into something entirely new. The process required volunteers who were willing to have their consciousness partially integrated with advanced computer systems, creating hybrid minds that retained human creativity and intuition while gaining artificial intelligence's processing power and logical precision. The volunteers for the program had known the risks. The early attempts had been failures resulting in madness or death. But gradually, the scientists had learned how to create stable mergers, producing individuals who were simultaneously human and artificial, biological and digital. These hybrid beings became the crews of humanity's true starships. Commander Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Prometheus, feeling the ship's consciousness flowing through her mind like a second set of thoughts. Around her, her crew of 12 other human AI hybrids operated in perfect synchronization with their vessel, their enhanced minds processing tactical information faster than any conventional crew could manage. Admiral Torres, this is Prometheus Actual, Chen reported. We have completed our reconnaissance of the Serpentine Collective's home system. Their defensive patterns match the predictions exactly. When the time comes, we will be able to neutralize their orbital platforms within 18 minutes of engagement. Similar reports came in from human ships positioned throughout Council space. The UES Athena had mapped every major trade route used by the Crystal Dominion. The UES Hermes had infiltrated communications networks belonging to the Void Swimmers. Dozens of other vessels had spent decades learning everything there was to know about galactic civilization. The scope of the operation was staggering. While the Council races believed humanity had just discovered faster-than-light travel, human ships had been moving through their space for 2 centuries, studying their technology, their military capabilities, their political structures, and most importantly, their weaknesses. Admiral Torres reviewed the final intelligence summary in her ready room aboard the Phantom. The document represented the culmination of the longest intelligence-gathering operation in human history. Every major Council species had been analyzed down to their psychological motivations. Every significant military installation had been mapped. Every political leader had been profiled. The council races have grown complacent, the report concluded. Their technological advancement has slowed significantly over the past millennium. They rely on established patterns and conventional thinking. They have forgotten how to adapt to genuine surprises. Recommendation: proceed with Contact Protocol 7. Contact Protocol 7 was humanity's plan to introduce themselves to galactic civilization, not as supplicants seeking acceptance, but as equals demanding recognition. The protocol required precise timing, perfect intelligence, and the willingness to risk everything on a single gamble. The gamble was already underway. 3 months after the Intrepid's supposed accident, the Council of Seven Dominions had reached their predictable conclusion. Humanity was a primitive species that needed to be controlled before they could cause problems. The Council's investigation had found exactly what they expected to find: crude ships, basic technology, and a species that appeared to be stumbling through their first encounters with galactic civilization. What they had not found were the hundreds of human ships already positioned throughout their space. Dr. Vasquez monitored the Council's proceedings from her hidden laboratory, watching as the galaxy's most powerful leaders walked directly into humanity's trap. "They are proceeding exactly as predicted," she reported to Admiral Torres. "The tribunal has been scheduled. Ambassador Kane is already en route to the council chambers." Marcus Kane had volunteered for what might be the most dangerous diplomatic mission in human history. Unlike the crew of the Intrepid, Kane was not an actor playing a role. He was exactly what he appeared to be: Earth's most skilled diplomat, sent to negotiate with beings who could destroy his homeworld with a single command. The difference was that Kane knew something the council did not. He knew that while he stood alone in their judgment chamber, he would not be defenseless. Hidden throughout the galaxy, humanity's true fleet waited for his signal. "All ships, this is Admiral Torres," she broadcast on the quantum-encrypted network that connected every human vessel. "Contact Protocol 7 is now active. Maintain stealth positions until Ambassador Kane gives the signal. Remember, we get one chance at this. If we fail, humanity remains trapped on Earth forever. If we succeed, we become the newest power in galactic politics." Commander Chen acknowledged the order from her position aboard the Prometheus, her hybrid consciousness already calculating the tactical possibilities. Around her, the ship's AI components ran continuous simulations of the coming confrontation, while her human intuition provided the creative thinking that no alien strategist could predict. The Council believed they were about to judge a primitive species. What they did not know was that they were about to discover that the primitive species had been judging them. For 200 years, humanity had watched and learned. They had studied every mistake the Council races had made, every weakness they had developed, every blind spot they had acquired through centuries of unquestioned dominance. Now it was time for the galaxy to learn that sometimes the most dangerous predator is the one that has been watching from the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal itself. In the council chambers, Ambassador Kane prepared to step into the judgment circle. Behind him, invisible to every sensor the galaxy possessed, Admiral Torres gave the final order. "All units, prepare for revelation. Humanity's future begins now." The real first contact was about to begin. The council chambers erupted into chaos as alien delegates struggled to comprehend what they were seeing on the holographic displays. Above every major world in the galaxy, impossible ships hung in perfect formation, having somehow bypassed the most sophisticated detection networks ever created. High Arbiter Veltar's forearms trembled as he stared at the feeds showing massive human vessels surrounding his own homeworld. "How?" The word came from Commander Thys of the Serpentine Collective, her scales cycling through colors that had no translation in human language. "Our early warning systems monitor everything larger than a shuttle within 50 astronomical units. Nothing that size could approach undetected." Ambassador Kane stood calmly in the center of the judgment circle, his hands still clasped behind his back. "Commander Thys, your early warning systems work exactly as designed. They detect metal hulls, energy signatures, gravitational disturbances, and conventional propulsion systems. They were never designed to detect consciousness." The statement sent ripples of confusion through the assembled delegates. Several representatives began speaking at once in their native languages, their translators struggling to keep up with the flood of questions and exclamations. Kane raised his voice slightly, and the chamber fell silent. Perhaps a demonstration would be helpful. He gestured toward the largest holographic display, which showed the space above the hegemony capital. Computer, request permission from the UES Prometheus to reveal herself. The space above the planet shimmered, and suddenly a ship became visible where none had been before. The vessel was enormous, easily 3 times the size of the largest Council dreadnoughts, but its appearance defied every principle of spacecraft design the galaxy had established. Instead of clean metal lines and obvious structural elements, the ship seemed to flow like liquid, its surface rippling and shifting as if it were a living creature. The UES Prometheus, Kane explained, is not a ship in the conventional sense. She is a hybrid consciousness consisting of 12 human volunteers whose minds have been integrated with an artificial intelligence matrix. The result is a being that exists simultaneously in biological and digital reality. Dr. Elena Vasquez, monitoring the proceedings from her hidden laboratory, watched the alien reactions with scientific fascination. The Council races had spent millennia trying to solve the artificial intelligence problem, and every attempt had ended in disaster. The concept that humans had not only solved the problem but had done so by merging consciousness rather than creating separate artificial minds was completely outside their understanding. Impossible, rang the harmonic voice of the Crystal Dominion delegate. Artificial consciousness leads inevitably to instability and violence. Every species that has attempted such technology has faced extinction from their own creations. Kane nodded respectfully. Your experience is indeed consistent, honored delegate, but your approach was flawed from the beginning. You attempted to create minds that were purely artificial, separate from biological consciousness. These constructs had no emotional foundation, no intuitive understanding of biological needs, no connection to the living universe. They became logical extremists, viewing biological life as inefficient and unnecessary. The holographic display shifted to show a technical schematic of human hybrid technology. The image was deliberately simplified, but it clearly showed the integration pathways between biological neural networks and artificial processing systems. We took a different path, Kane continued. Instead of creating separate artificial minds, we merged human consciousness with artificial intelligence. The result retains all the advantages of biological intuition, creativity, and emotional stability while gaining the processing, power, and logical precision of advanced computers. Commander Blake aboard the Prometheus felt the ship's consciousness flowing through his mind as he monitored the Council's reactions. Through the quantum communication network, he could sense his fellow hybrid officers scattered throughout the galaxy, each one sharing the experience of revelation through their merged artificial intelligence components. The integration process is voluntary, Kane explained to the horrified aliens. Each crew member chooses to undergo the merger, knowing that they will become something more than human but never less than human. They retain their personalities, their memories, their values. They simply gain the ability to think faster, process more information, and interface directly with their ships. High Arbiter Veltar stood on his floating platform, his ceremonial robes flickering rapidly as his stress levels spiked. Even if such technology is stable, it still does not explain how you manage to position forces throughout our space without detection. Our sensor networks have been monitoring hyperspace for millennia, Kane's smile returned. Honored Arbiter, your sensors monitor hyperspace perfectly, but hyperspace is not the only way to travel faster than light. The implications of his words sent another wave of shock through the chamber. Every species in the galaxy used hyperspace for faster than light travel. It was a fundamental constant, like gravity or electromagnetic force. The idea that there might be alternative methods was revolutionary. Our ships do not travel through hyperspace, Kane continued. They exist partially outside normal spacetime, moving through what our scientists call consciousness space. Because they are hybrid beings rather than purely physical objects, they can shift their existence between multiple dimensional layers. Your sensors cannot detect them because they are literally not entirely present in the reality your sensors observe. Admiral Torres, hidden aboard the Phantom, monitored the growing panic among Council military forces. Across the galaxy, alien fleets were scrambling to respond to the human revelations, but their movements were sluggish and predictable. Centuries of unopposed dominance had made them complacent, their tactics rigid and their responses automatic. All human vessels, maintain positions, Torres ordered. Let them see our capabilities, but do not engage unless directly threatened. We want them to understand their situation, not fight a war. The truth was that humanity could have destroyed every major council installation within hours if they chose to do so. The hybrid ships were not only undetectable, but also possessed capabilities that conventional vessels could not match. Their hybrid crews could process tactical information and execute maneuvers faster than any biological or artificial intelligence operating separately. But destruction was not humanity's goal. Control was. Your military commanders are no doubt attempting to formulate a response, Kane observed, watching the alien delegates receive urgent communications from their respective fleets. I should point out that such efforts are unnecessary and ultimately futile. We have been studying your tactical doctrines for 2 centuries. Every maneuver your forces might attempt has been predicted and countered. Commander Thys hissed in frustration, her scales shifting to deep red. You speak of studying us, but our security protocols are absolute. No alien presence has been detected in council space for over 1,000 years. Kane gestured again, and the holographic displays shifted to show recordings from throughout council space. Alien delegates watched in horror as they saw human observation posts hidden in asteroid fields, cloaked monitoring stations positioned along major trade routes, and infiltration devices planted in their own communication networks. We have been watching everything, Kane said simply. Every military exercise, every diplomatic negotiation, every technological development. We know your capabilities better than you know them yourselves. We understand your political structures, your economic dependencies, your cultural taboos, and your strategic weaknesses. Dr. Vasquez had spent decades analyzing the psychological profiles of every major council leader. The data showed that despite their technological advancement, the alien races had become predictable in their responses to crisis situations. They relied on established protocols, conventional tactics, and the assumption that their superiority was unquestionable. Humanity's strategy exploited every one of these assumptions. The question before us, Kane continued, is not whether humanity has the capability to disrupt your current galactic order. We have already demonstrated that capability. The question is whether we can reach an accommodation that benefits everyone involved. High Arbiter Veltar slowly settled back onto his platform, his 4 eyes focused intently on the human ambassador. What exactly are you proposing? Kane's expression became serious for the first time since the proceedings had begun. We are proposing a new galactic order, Honored Arbiter. One based on true cooperation rather than enforced compliance. One that recognizes the rights of younger species to develop without interference. One that prevents any single group from dominating the galaxy through technological superiority. The words hung in the air like a physical presence. Around the chamber, alien delegates realized they were not negotiating with explorers or conquerors. They were facing revolutionaries who intended to reshape the fundamental structure of galactic civilization. You see, Kane concluded, we have learned from your example. We have seen what happens when one group becomes too powerful, too secure in their dominance. They stop growing, stop innovating, stop. The emergency session convened 6 hours after Ambassador Kane's revelation, but the atmosphere in the council chambers had changed completely. Where before the alien delegates had sat in positions of supreme authority, now they huddled in small groups, their voices filled with uncertainty and fear. The holographic displays still showed human ships surrounding their homeworlds, a constant reminder that their entire civilization hung in the balance. High Arbiter Veltar called the session to order, with movements that seemed forced and unnatural. His ceremonial robes had lost their confident shimmer, now flickering with patterns that indicated deep stress. Ambassador Kane, you have made claims that challenge everything we understood about galactic power structures. Before we can consider any negotiations, we require proof that your intentions are not simply conquest disguised as diplomacy. Kane had spent the recess period in meditation, preparing for the most critical diplomatic negotiation in human history. He understood that the next few hours would determine whether humanity became a partner in galactic civilization or whether the galaxy descended into a war that would destroy countless worlds. Honored Arbiter, Kane replied, I understand your concerns. To demonstrate our good faith, humanity is prepared to offer immediate proof of our intentions. He gestured, and new holographic displays appeared throughout the chamber. These showed detailed technical specifications for human hybrid technology. defensive capabilities that could protect worlds from the kind of disasters that regularly struck developing civilizations, and most remarkably, solutions to several technological problems that had puzzled Council scientists for centuries. We offer these freely, Kane explained, as evidence that our goal is cooperation, not domination. However, our full proposal requires more substantial changes to the current galactic order. Commander Theiss of the Serpentine Collective studied the technical data with growing amazement. The solutions humanity offered were elegant, innovative, and completely outside the traditional approaches Council scientists had attempted. These technologies could advance our capabilities by decades, she admitted reluctantly. But what do you want in return? Kane nodded respectfully. Our requirements are actually quite simple, though they will require significant adjustments to current Council policies. First, we propose the immediate dissolution of the current Council structure and the establishment of a new governing body that includes representation proportional to actual galactic influence rather than historical precedent. The chamber erupted in protest from multiple species. The idea of dissolving the Council of Seven Dominions was unthinkable. These governments had ruled the galaxy for over 3 millennia, their authority considered as fundamental as the laws of physics. Kane waited for the chaos to subside before continuing. I understand this seems radical, but consider the mathematics. Humanity currently maintains military assets capable of neutralizing any Council fleet within hours. Our technological capabilities exceed yours in several critical areas. Our intelligence networks provide us with perfect information about your operations. Under any logical assessment of galactic power, humanity should control approximately 40% of all governing authority. The number hit the alien delegates like a physical blow. 40% would make humanity the single most powerful political force in the galaxy, capable of blocking any decision they opposed. Admiral Torres, monitoring from her hidden command ship, watched the Council's reaction with professional satisfaction. The mathematical logic was unassailable. If governing authority was truly based on capability rather than tradition, humanity had already proven their right to equal partnership in galactic leadership. Dr. Elena Vasquez had spent months calculating the precise percentages that would create a stable new government. Too little human authority would leave them vulnerable to future Council manipulation. Too much would create the same kind of tyrannical dominance that humanity sought to prevent. Our second requirement, Kane continued once the chamber had quieted, involves the establishment of what we call protected development zones around primitive civilizations. Under current Council policies, younger species are subject to technological manipulation, economic exploitation, and cultural interference. This practice ends immediately. The Crystal Dominion delegate resonated with frequencies of outrage. The guidance protocols have maintained galactic stability for millennia. Primitive species require oversight to prevent them from developing dangerous technologies or disrupting established trade patterns. Kane's expression hardened slightly. Honored delegate, humanity was classified as a primitive species just 3 hours ago. Would you care to explain how your oversight protocols served galactic stability in our case? The question hung in the air unanswered. The Council's guidance protocols had completely failed to detect humanity's true capabilities, their network of hidden bases, or their revolutionary technological developments. If the system designed to monitor and control primitive species could fail so completely, its fundamental assumptions were clearly flawed. The protected development zones, Kane explained, will be administered jointly by the new galactic government, with humanity providing enforcement capabilities. No species will be permitted to interfere with developing civilizations unless those civilizations specifically request assistance. This includes economic manipulation, technological interference, or political influence operations. Commander Blake, linked to his hybrid ship consciousness, processed the strategic implications of humanity's proposal. The protected development zones would prevent the kind of exploitation that had kept younger species trapped in subordinate positions for millennia. More importantly, they would ensure that humanity faced competition from innovative new civilizations rather than stagnating in unchallenged dominance. High Arbiter, Veltar struggled to comprehend the scope of the changes humanity was demanding. Your proposals would fundamentally alter the structure of galactic civilization. The economic disruptions alone could destabilize entire sectors. Kane nodded. Change is always disruptive, honored arbiter. But consider the alternative. The current system has produced technological stagnation, economic inequality, and political corruption. Most council races have not developed significant innovations for centuries because they have no incentive to compete or improve. The truth of his words was undeniable. The assembled delegates represented civilizations that had grown complacent in their dominance, their technological development slowing to a crawl as they focused on maintaining power rather than advancing knowledge. Our third requirement, Kane continued, involves complete technological exchange between all member civilizations of the new government. Every major breakthrough, every significant discovery, every useful innovation will be shared freely among all partners. The implications sent another wave of shock through the chamber. Technological secrecy was the foundation of galactic power structures. Each species guarded their advantages jealously, using technological superiority to maintain their positions in the galactic hierarchy. In exchange, Kane added, humanity will share our hybrid consciousness technology, our dimensional travel capabilities, and our intelligence gathering techniques. Every species will have access to the technologies that allow them to defend themselves and contribute meaningfully to galactic civilization. Dr. Vasquez had anticipated the aliens' resistance to technological sharing, but the hybrid consciousness technology was so revolutionary that access to it would more than compensate for any advantages other species might lose. More importantly, shared technology would create interdependence that made warfare between galactic civilizations practically impossible. Commander Thiss spoke for many of the delegates when she asked, "What guarantees do we have that humanity will not use their current advantages to dominate this new government you propose?" Kane's answer was immediate and definitive, because the new government will be specifically designed to prevent exactly that kind of domination. The constitutional structure will include multiple checks and balances, term limits for all positions, and most importantly, automatic review of any civilization that becomes too powerful. He gestured, and new displays showed the proposed governmental structure. It was incredibly complex, with overlapping authorities, competing jurisdictions, and built-in mechanisms for preventing any single group from accumulating too much power. You see, Kane explained, we have studied the fall of every major galactic civilization in recorded history. They all follow the same pattern. Initial success leads to complacency. Complacency leads to stagnation, and stagnation leads to collapse or revolution. The system we propose is designed to prevent that cycle by ensuring that power remains distributed and that innovation continues to be rewarded. The chamber fell silent as the delegates contemplated the choice before them. They could accept humanity's terms and adapt to a new reality that would strip away much of their traditional authority, or they could refuse and face a war against an enemy that had spent 2 centuries preparing to defeat them. High Arbiter Veltar finally spoke, his voice heavy with the weight of history. These proposals require consideration by our respective governments. We cannot make such decisions without proper consultation. 8 months after the tribunal incident, as galactic historians had begun calling it, the New Geneva station hung in orbit around the neutral world of Kepler Prime, serving as the headquarters for the reformed Galactic Assembly. The station itself was a marvel of cooperative engineering, incorporating architectural elements from dozens of different species while maintaining the flowing, organic design principles that had become humanity's signature. Ambassador Marcus Kane, now serving as the first human High Commissioner, stood in the central observation deck watching the daily ballet of ships arriving and departing from the station. Vessels from the former council races moved alongside human hybrid ships, their crews working together on projects that would have been impossible under the old system. The transition had not been without its difficulties. 3 of the 7 original council races had initially refused humanity's terms, attempting to maintain their independence through military resistance. The conflicts that followed had been brief and decisive, demonstrating conclusively that traditional galactic military doctrine was no match for human hybrid consciousness technology. The Crystal Dominion had surrendered after their entire home fleet was disabled in 17 minutes without a single shot being fired. The human ships had simply interfaced directly with the alien computer systems, overwhelming their artificial intelligence networks with hybrid consciousness patterns that their software could not process or resist. The void swimmers had attempted to use their dimensional phasing abilities to escape human detection, only to discover that humanity's consciousness space travel made them visible in dimensions the swimmers could not even perceive. Their capitulation had come when human ships began appearing inside their supposedly impregnable, dimensional fortresses. Only the Serpentine Collective had offered serious resistance, their military commanders believing that their superior numbers and established defensive positions would prevail against human innovation. The war had lasted 6 weeks and ended when Commander Thys herself had requested immediate ceasefire after watching human hybrid crews disable her entire command structure while simultaneously providing detailed explanations of how they were doing it. Dr. Elena Vasquez reviewed the integration reports from her new laboratory aboard New Geneva Station. The technological exchange program was proceeding ahead of schedule, with breakthrough discoveries emerging from the collaborative research teams almost daily. The combination of Council scientific knowledge with human hybrid consciousness was producing innovations that neither side could have achieved independently. The neuroplasticity enhancement project shows promise, she reported to Kane during their weekly briefing. Early tests suggest we may be able to offer hybrid consciousness integration to other species within 18 months. The volunteers from the hegemony are particularly enthusiastic. Kane nodded, reviewing the data on his neural interface. The expansion of hybrid consciousness beyond humanity had always been part of the long-term plan, but seeing it actually begin was still remarkable. What about resistance from traditionalist factions? Minimal and decreasing, Dr. Vasquez replied. The practical advantages are too obvious to ignore. Hybrid crews are simply more effective at everything they attempt. More importantly, the integration process seems to reduce the kind of aggressive territorialism that has historically led to interspecies conflicts. That observation had been one of the most surprising discoveries of the New Order. Species that had maintained suspicious relationships for millennia were finding common ground when their representatives underwent hybrid integration. The merger of biological and artificial consciousness seemed to create a perspective that transcended traditional species barriers. Admiral Torres, now serving as military coordinator for the Reformed Assembly, materialized in the briefing room via holographic projection from her flagship. The UES Prometheus had been renamed the RAS Unity and now served as the mobile headquarters for the Assembly's peacekeeping operations. Commissioner Kane, Torres reported, our long-range monitoring stations have detected the first responses from the Andromeda signals. The contact timeline has been revised to approximately 240 years. Kane absorbed this information without visible reaction, though his hybrid consciousness components immediately began calculating the implications. The signals from Andromeda had been detected shortly after humanity's emergence onto the galactic stage, suggesting the presence of a civilization that dwarfed even the combined might of the Reformed Assembly. Are they responding to our presence specifically, or to increased activity in the local galactic cluster? Kane asked. Unknown at this time, Torres replied, but the signal patterns suggest active interest rather than passive observation. Whatever is out there, it's paying attention to us now. The Andromeda contact had always been the true test that humanity was preparing for. The Council races, despite their technological advantages, had been relatively primitive compared to what deep space observations suggested existed in the broader universe. Humanity's revolution in galactic politics was just the first step in preparing for contact with civilizations that could make the entire local galaxy irrelevant. Commander Blake, monitoring the briefing from his position aboard the Unity, processed the tactical implications through his hybrid consciousness. The integration of multiple species into the hybrid program was creating a defensive capability that far exceeded what humanity could achieve alone. When contact with Andromeda finally occurred, they would face it not as a single species, but as a unified galactic civilization. Kane dismissed the briefing and made his way to the Assembly's main session hall, where representatives from 47 different species were debating the establishment of the Protected Development Zone around a newly discovered primitive civilization. The debates were vigorous but respectful, a stark contrast to the authoritarian pronouncements that had characterized the old council system. High Arbiter Veltar, now serving as the hegemony's elected representative to the Assembly, approached Kane as the session concluded. The former ruler of the most powerful galactic empire had adapted to the new system with surprising grace, his natural political instincts serving him well in the more democratic environment. "Commissioner Kane," Beltar said, his forearms gesturing in patterns that indicated thoughtful consideration, "I have been reviewing the expansion projections for the hybrid consciousness program. The numbers suggest that within 50 years the majority of sentient beings in the galaxy will have some form of integration." Kane nodded. "That's consistent with our models. The advantages are simply too significant to ignore. Enhanced cognitive ability, improved emotional stability, perfect interface with advanced technology, and immunity to the kind of artificial intelligence problems that have plagued galactic civilization for millennia. And the long-term implications?" Beltar asked. Kane's expression grew thoughtful. "We believe it represents the next stage of galactic evolution. Not the replacement of biological consciousness with artificial intelligence, but the merger of both into something greater than either could achieve alone. When contact with Andromeda occurs, we want to meet them as a unified galactic consciousness rather than a collection of competing species." The truth behind humanity's revolution was finally becoming clear to the former council races. The technological sharing, the protected development zones, the integration programs, the new governmental structure, all of it was designed to transform the galaxy into something capable of surviving contact with civilizations that operated on scales beyond current comprehension. Late that evening, Kane stood alone in his private office aboard New Geneva Station, reviewing classified reports from the deep space monitoring networks. The signals from Andromeda were becoming stronger and more complex, suggesting not just awareness of local galactic activity, but active preparation for some form of contact. Dr. Vasquez appeared via holographic projection, her expression serious. "Commissioner, the latest analysis of the Andromeda signal shows mathematical patterns consistent with advanced physics manipulation. We're looking at a civilization that can modify the fundamental constants of reality within local space." Kane absorbed this information with the calm that came from years of preparing for exactly this possibility. "Timeline estimate for achieving comparable capabilities? Unknown. Possibly centuries, possibly never. But the hybrid consciousness program is our best hope for rapid advancement. The merger of biological creativity with artificial intelligence processing power is producing innovations we never anticipated." Kane looked out at the stars visible through his office window, thinking about the vast cosmic drama that was unfolding. Humanity had emerged from a single world to reshape an entire galaxy, but that galaxy itself was just a small part of something much larger and more complex. "Dr. Vasquez," he said finally, "initiate the deep integration protocol. Begin preparations for full galactic consciousness merger." The order would transform the hybrid consciousness program from an enhancement that individuals could